In 1911, Charles Lawson married Fannie Manring, with whom he had 8 children. The third, William, born in 1914, died of an illness in 1920. In 1918, following the move of his younger brothers Marion and Elijah to the Germanton area in North Carolina, Lawson followed suit with his family. The Lawsons worked as tenant tobacco farmers, saving enough money by 1927 to buy their own farm on Brook Cove Road. Money was tight, but with everyone helping out, the family lived happily, at least from a stranger's perspective. There were rumors among close family members that Charlie was unwell. There was one family member who said Charlie talked to the dead and to spirits and perhaps even to the devil himself. But another rumor would make talking to the devil a relatively mild evildoing. There was deep speculation and some knowledge from families in the inner circle that Charlie was sexually abusing his eldest daughter, 17-year-old Marie, and possibly his second oldest daughter, Carrie, age 12. Some believe that Marie was with child, being impregnated by her own father, and this led Charlie to finally end it all for himself and his family. Others believe he sustained a head injury which caused him to go temporarily insane. Others believe the devil whispered in his ear and Charlie listened. What promises he heard, we will never know. But Charlie's actions prior to the Christmas Day massacre seemed normal, more jovial and heartwarming than a man about to murder his family in cold blood. Several days beforehand, Charlie took his entire family into town, bought them new clothes and presents and jewelry, and set out to have a portrait taken. This act was considered out of character, not only for Charlie, but for a farmer who had just recently purchased his home and land. To some, this indicated that the violent act to follow was premeditated. On December 25th, 1929, Charlie told his oldest son, Arthur, who was 19 at the time, to go to complete an errand. The young man obliged and set off. We do not know why Charlie sent Arthur away, and in effect, saved him from being slain. Charlie then went to the barn and retrieved a firearm, and he waited in darkness until he sprung out, meeting his 2 daughters as they were on their way to visit her aunt and uncle. Carrie, age 12, and Maybelle, age 7, were shot with a 12-gauge shotgun in the back as they attempted to flee from their father. They sprawled out on the ground, and to make sure the deed was complete, Charlie took the butt end of the shotgun and bludgeoned them until they were still. He grabbed them by the arms and dragged them into the tobacco barn and reloaded the shotgun. Hearing the shots, Charlie's wife, Fannie, went on the porch, cradling her 4-month-old Mary Lou in her arms. It wasn't uncommon to hear the sound of a firearm, but this time it was awfully close, and perhaps Charlie was shooting at vermin, or maybe he spotted a deer. But curiosity soon turned to horror as she saw Charlie approach her, the shotgun in his hand, pointing at her. She let out a scream, and the sound of the 12-gauge roared. Marie, the eldest daughter, saw what had just happened and screamed in horror as she witnessed her own father slay her mother on the front porch. She thought of running, but wanted to protect her 2 siblings inside the house. She told the boys, James, aged 4, and Raymond, aged 2, to hide. She was about to run out the front door and grab the baby, Mary Lou, just 4 months old, when Charlie burst through the threshold of the home. He pointed the shotgun at her and fired. The baby began to cry loudly, and the 2 boys sobbed in horror as they attempted to hide from the madman. Charlie found Raymond and slammed the gun into his face, smashing it inward. James tried to run, but was grabbed and thrown to the floor. He too was bludgeoned to death. The little baby, still crying out in fear on the front porch, as this evil unfolded around her. Lastly, after beating the children with the butt of the gun until they were dead, he went to the front porch, and found Mary Lou crying in her dead mother's arms, and slammed his gun down into her little skull until it was totally crushed inward. The house fell silent. The deed complete. Charlie then took each of the bodies and laid them out, crossing their arms, and put pillows under their heads as if to prop them up comfortably. The two bodies in the barns were found in a similar fashion, but instead of pillows, they were found with rocks under their heads. Family members were off to see the Lawson family, noted that there was blood near the barn, and they went up to the front porch and noticed Fannie, and then inside they saw the bodies of the children, the room totally covered in blood. They began a frantic search for Arthur and Charlie. Charlie had began to walk in the woods. He found himself walking around a single tree, pacing around it. As the search continued and police notified, they heard a single gunshot. Following the sound and the howling of two beagle dogs, they found Charlie's dead body, a self-inflicted gunshot wound, the cause of death. Searching the body, they found a letter written by Charlie to his parents. It read, "Blame no one but I." And then in another pocket, another note, "Trouble can cause." It was evident Charlie was the murderer, and the only survival of this mayhem was his eldest son, sent on an errand by Charlie himself. A murder such as this, especially on Christmas Day, brought out the press, and it was even front-page news in the New York Times. Curiosity seekers started flooding in to see the home and the murder scene, so Charlie's brother began a tour of the home, allowing visitors in to see for themselves firsthand. They witnessed new toys from Christmas strewn across the floor, blood on the floorboards, a Christmas cake set out to cool, and an eerie stillness to a home that was full of life months before. A pamphlet of the tragedy was sold on site for 25 cents, and in it was a written poem.
On a hill beside a roadway stands a lonely cottage home, where there once had lived some people, and they called it all their own. Looking outward from this doorway, on the brook that runs below, you can hear the trees murmuring as they're bending to and fro. But this house is now deserted, and the people are away, for 'tis here occurred a murder on a snowy Christmas day. There the father, Charles D. Lawson, with his mind almost undone, took the lives of all his people, save that of his oldest son. There his wife was lying prostrate in her blood upon the floor, and her baby in the cradle, whom she fondled with no more. And Marie was also lying close beside her mother's head, so were James and Raymond victims, for they were there lying dead. And Carrie and little Maybelle, who were running up the road, fell the victims of this madman as his gun let out its load. Yet he surely must have loved them as he gently laid each head there upon a little pillow for the sleeping of the dead. How he did this awful murder tried to tell, there's no one can, for his actions were too mystic for the mind of any man. Yet we must concede him crazy when he did this awful crime, for no man that's normal-minded would have dared to kill his kind. When he saw this awful murder that he knew that he had done, how could he have had the courage there to face his only son? So he started out there running to some woods not far away, and he ended his own life there on this snowy Christmas day. So now, friends, while you are passing by this little house upon the hill, do not say that he just did it of his own accord and will, but be sure in your decisions have a kind, forgiving mind. God alone can judge the actions of a madman of this kind.
The event was also written into song.
They say he killed his wife at first, and the little ones did cry.
And even with an inquest and many published books and interviews with family members, we still do not know why Charlie murdered his own in such a horrendous way and then ended his own life. Today, the barn, the house, and anything that would indicate a family lived on this land is gone. There's simply a really small subfloor left, and it is on private property. Some of the wood from the barn and the house was actually used to build a small nearby bridge. Some say the land and the bridge and the funeral home where they were embalmed are all haunted. And certainly we know that restless spirits can haunt the locations of their murders, especially when there are no answers. The bodies are all interned all together in a private cemetery. Now, let's go back to Christmas Day in 1929. Let's try to open a channel to speak to Charlie and to find out why he committed such a horrendous thing to his entire family. We may even try to reach Fannie, his wife, or his eldest daughter, Marie. We will try an automatic writing session, and then we will do a short tarot reading to see if we can gain some knowledge of what happened that fateful Christmas day, and more importantly, why.